So, some Groyper Goths on Instagram are trying to start the next holy war. Let's talk about it. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Taylor, and on this channel we talk about life and relationships after leaving the church, and we also do some commentary on the goings-on in evangelical Christianity. So around 9 months ago, I released a video titled The Idiocy of TikTok's Conservative Goths. As the title suggests, I discussed how a handful of TikTokers were identifying themselves as conservative Goths. I pointed out that while these TikTokers are entitled to identify however they wish, they are unlikely to find acceptance within the wider Goth community. And this is because Goth as a subculture stems from the punk scene, which is not just a music scene, but also an ideological scene defined by political positions antithetical to conservatism, such as anti-capitalism, anti-establishment, and anarchism. The goth scene inherited these leftist attitudes and even expanded them further regarding issues of sex and gender. I had thought that the hubbub surrounding the conservative goth issue had mostly died down online. While these TikTokers hadn't stopped posting, they were vastly outnumbered by other goths who ripped their rhetoric to shreds. But unfortunately, the conservative goth trend hadn't exactly died down as I thought. More like it just moved platforms and became a lot more extreme. And this new wave of conservative goths on Instagram goes beyond simply pairing MAGA beanies with trad goth makeup. No, this new wave is ready and willing to fight in the next Christian crusade. So, how did I find out about these Instagrammers? Well, a few months ago, I happened upon an Instagram account called Christ with Callie. Although Callie herself isn't goth, her posts share a lot in common with the specific goths I'll be talking about today. And for me, her account served as a gateway into this niche community. Callie is an Orthodox Christian, traditionalist, and an avowed Groyper. If you're unfamiliar, Groyper is a nickname for fans of the far-right neo-Nazi influencer Nick Fuentes. Honestly, when I first found Callie's page, I kind of thought her posts were satire because they were just so extreme and really weird. It was hard for me to believe that there was a real person behind this account.
When somebody tells me I belong in the kitchen, you're right, I do. I love it here. Let's make the kitchen great again. It's so much fun, you know? Get a husband, get pregnant, make some pies. Oh my gosh, there's so much joy. No one understands me. No one gets it. Okay? Honey, I made muffins.
Piers Morgan, Nick Fuentes. Psh, psh, get back to work, Piers Morgan. Oh, psh, psh. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I was ratioed live television, ratioed stream. Psh, psh.
Since apparently I just love punishing myself with right-wing slop content, I started following Callie on IG. Well, really, I started following her because it's kind of become my job to monitor the goings-on in these Christo-fascist circles. After a while, I noticed Callie reposting a lot of content from another IG page called Feminist to Feminine. This page has over 100,000 followers and is supposedly run by a Catholic woman named Emily. In her bio, Emily lists her pronouns as sin/ner, which I've discovered is kind of customary for accounts like this, and she claims to be a religious school. Emily's page has what I would describe as an ethereal goth aesthetic. Many of her posts feature atmospheric images like mist-shrouded cathedrals, black and white photos of ruins, and close-up shots of feminine hands clutching rosaries. These collages are set to the tune of goth music favorites like Twin Tribes, and captioned with quips like, "My religion isn't your aesthetic," and "The cure to female loneliness is Jesus Christ." Most disturbingly, some of her posts are incredibly bigoted, namely anti-Semitic, and call for another Christian crusade. For instance, one of her posts features a montage depicting various Catholic archetypes as what I can only describe as Bratz dolls. The emo Catholic doll is characterized by a love of Gothic architecture, a short temper when people criticize the church, a special devotion to Mary, and a plea to Pope Leo for another crusade. The newbie Catholic doll is portrayed as owning 1,000 rosaries, refusing to tolerate any disrespect toward the church, spending her days studying Catholicism, and, of course, debating Protestants, Jews, and Muslims online in her spare time, as all good Catholic girls do. I noticed that Emily, if that's indeed the name of the person that's behind this account, regularly posts in tandem with similar Catholic and Orthodox Goth accounts on IG, like Heart and Faith, Evangelist, Vampy Sam, and Cherries for Jesus. Many of them even share the exact same posts and memes, most of which have an undercurrent of anti-Semitism and calls for holy wars. Notably, most of these accounts were created relatively recently, with most beginning to share these goth-washed religio-political content within just the last 2 years. It's really become evident to me that there's a small but alarmingly growing ecosystem on Instagram of supposedly women promoting far-right, often neo-Nazi rhetoric that's intertwined with religious fanaticism and then cloaked in a soft goth aesthetic, a phenomenon which I'm dubbing the goth Groyper trend. So today I'd like to analyze some of the posts from these goth Groypers, and to help with this, I'm of course bringing Drew on to help me respond. As a warning before we proceed, many of the posts that we'll be looking at today contain outright anti-Semitism or some form of bigotry, and if you're not up for that, which is totally no worries, we'll catch you on the next video. You do not have to subject yourself to that. All right, let's jump in. This is gonna be interesting. Are you ready to get into some goth Groyper Instagram posts?
If I said no, would we still do it?
Yes, we would still
okay.
do it.
Then let's go.
All right, so this first one says, outfit for the next crusade.
Also, the track is Christ is King.
Yeah, I think the band is Impending Doom, and I'm pretty sure that they're like a Christian doom metal, I guess, band.
Okay, so, I mean, it kind of seems like the whole black metal thing has come full circle back to fascism and what fascism was before black metal made it about being evil for evil's sake. It was actually about like religious totality and control.
Yeah, no, it has come full circle. And something I find interesting is that this picture is actually a photograph of a black metal artist. I wrote down some information about him. Yeah, black metal musician Kecht Arak. Kecht Arak. Yeah, and I noted, while there is a dangerous subculture within the black metal scene called NSBM, which is National Socialist Black Metal, it's, you know, neo-Nazi black metal, it doesn't appear that this artist belongs to it. And I also find it interesting, like you were kind of pointing to earlier, is that black metal historically has held a lot of like anti-Christian sentiment and has promoted like Satanism and paganism. There are today like actual Christian black metal bands, like that is a thing, but like that's historically hasn't been necessarily. So I just find it interesting that this Catholic Groyper is posting a picture of a black metal artist and then putting the caption as, we need to start the next crusade.
Yeah. Like I said, black metal had themes really early on of being a Nazi, being a fascist, which has a religious element to it that is quite strong. You know, God with us on the uniform kind of thing. But then also, just as early on, it had elements of Satanism. And now Satanism and fascism are like completely opposite things, totally butting heads now. So it's just interesting that it seems to me that like the Satanists and the like Christian fascists are somewhat fighting over the black metal aesthetic.
Yeah. Well, I would say that Satanism as it's understood today, just with like within the last decade with like the emergence of the Satanic Temple, has become representative of something that's very much against like fascism.
Yeah.
But there are there are a few Satanist neo-Nazi groups, and within black metal especially, black metal has a Nazi problem, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Not all bands are, but like there is a concerningly large amount of like NSBM music. I also did want to read the caption of this. So it says, I've seen lots of Christians say it's wrong to be alternative because it's somehow demonic. Being alternative often means existing outside of social norms, something very familiar to Christianity. Jesus himself was seen as out of the norms by religious leaders. Some subcultures, like Goth, are heavily influenced by Catholicism. Gothic comes from Catholicism, by the way. Of course, there are symbols that come from Satanism and paganism, but as long as you don't embrace them and keep your identity rooted in Christ, there is nothing wrong with creative expression. Jesus loves his creative children. Embrace Jesus and stay true to yourself. So I found this interesting, specifically the part where they say Gothic comes from Catholicism, by the way, because I've seen a lot of posts from these like Groyper Goths claiming that Catholicism or Catholics were the original Goths.
Yeah.
And obviously the Goth subculture draws from Catholicism and Christianity in general, but it also draws from like occultism and just paganism. So like I already knew that claim wasn't true, but I did do some research on like where the term goth originally came from, and I want to like talk about that for a second. Okay, so I say the caption says that Catholics were the original Goths. This isn't exactly true. The original Goths with a capital G were pagan and nomadic Germanic tribes that saw prominence between the 4th and 8th centuries. To make a long story short, the Goths had two main factions, the Visigoths and the Ostrogoths. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. The former teamed up with the Holy Roman Empire, and the latter teamed up with the Huns, and some of these Goths were actually integral to the decline of the Roman Empire. At some point, the Goths were converted to a form of Christianity, but it was called Arianism, and not to be confused with like Nazi Arianism. Yeah. This form of Christianity rejected the Trinity and taught that Jesus was distinct from God. And this is something that to most Christians today is seen as very heretical, although there are groups like the Jehovah's Witnesses that adhere to like a non-Trinitarian theology.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I believe that the Arian controversy, as in like deliberation over non-Trinitarian forms of Christianity, was one of the things that the Council of Nicaea deliberated over. Like, everyone thinks that they talked about the books that were going to go in the canon. No, that's not true. But they talked about non-Trinitarian forms of Christianity, and that was one of the things that made what became eventually like Orthodox and Catholic churches saying, no, that's a heresy.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, what I found interesting about this was that like their claim that Catholics are the original Goths because the Goths eventually, like the Goth people group, eventually converted to a form of Christianity. I feel like that's like such a big stretch because it's like, yeah, they eventually did convert to Christianity, but not a form of Christianity that you would accept today. You would think that it's heretical. So like, I don't know what kind of point you're trying to make with that.
Yeah.
But the Germanic Goths, that has kind of little connection, like very little connection to how we use the term goth today.
Right.
I mean, there is a connection there, but it's like the word has changed its meaning. So I wrote, but the word goth in reference to architecture, literature, and the subculture is only connected to the original Goths and what the word goth connotes. Goth became a pejorative used to describe someone or something as barbaric or lacking refinement. When the medieval style of architecture we now call Gothic emerged, artists at the time called it Gothic because they saw it as barbarous. Eventually, though, the word goth came to be associated with chivalry and romance, and the romantic/Gothic era of literature, the like literary movement of the 18th and 19th centuries, with novels like Frankenstein, were characterized by an interest in the dark, mysterious, and supernatural. And this is the meaning of goth that the goth subculture drew from, and not the Germanic tribes. And I also wrote, like, also goth as a subculture draws from the iconography of Christianity, the occult, and paganism. Goth is not exclusively Christian or Catholic.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I found that, like, that's, like, such a big claim, and, like, you can easily fact check that and, like, know that, like, the Catholics weren't the original goth. Like, that's, like, such a reach.
Yeah, well, I mean, two things that fascists are really into is having a very particular and solid aesthetic, which, you know, goth subculture already has.
Yeah.
And then also having a great mythic history that it must return to. And that part is always as invented as the aesthetic is.
Yeah.
Like, that mythical history did not exist. There was no, like, you know, Aryan race. Like, that was just a myth. There was no mythical past. And also the Catholic Church did not somehow spring out of, like, a wonderful, like, Gothic culture or something.
Yeah, it's not that simplistic.
Yeah.
But, like, when you mentioned that, like, fascists are trying to get back to some mythical past, that's definitely, and, like, we'll see this as we continue, that's definitely what these Groyper Goths are trying to do with a lot of their calls for, like, a new Christian crusade, because they believe that we need to go back to, like, a golden era or a better time that, like, honestly never existed.
Right.
As I mentioned towards the end of my last video about Gabby Hanna, 2026 has kind of been a doozy so far for me. I ended up throwing out my back, like, on January 3rd. So in today's January 14th, and it hasn't really gotten better. Our dog Piggy had an MRI, and life has generally felt a bit chaotic. And I've realized how important it is to carve out time for relaxation and do something fun for a change. And that's where today's video sponsor, June's Journey, has really come in handy for me. June's Journey is a 1920s themed hidden object mystery game that interweaves crime solving and world building. The story follows a determined woman named June Parker as she seeks answers to her sister's murder. As you progress through each chapter, June discovers new clues hidden in the ornately decorated rooms that make up her family's estate. What's also really cool about June's Journey is that as you progress through the story, you'll have the opportunity to decorate the island that the estate is on. And I was, like, really, really excited when I had enough coins to put, like, a big statue out on the lawn right next to my fountain. And I mean, like, if I actually had a huge estate like that, you guys know I'd be decorating it with the most ostentatious stuff ever, like gargoyles and huge marble statues. And June's Journey also runs special events and seasonal content, so there is always something new to discover. You can download June's Journey for free by clicking the link below in the description or scanning the QR code on screen right now. I've really enjoyed playing this game so far to relax, especially in the evenings, and especially right now where we are in the world. It's kind of like doing a puzzle or a coloring book, and I think you all will really enjoy it just as much as I have, so be sure to check it out. All right, thanks June's Journey. Now back to the video. Okay, this one, oof. You guys remember I had a trigger warning on this video, and this one for sure they're a big trigger warning for anti-Semitism. If you don't want to watch that, please skip. All right, so we're going to look through all of these pictures here. So this one says, the look I give a Christian who supports the juice. What do you think juice stands for?
Oh, yeah. No, I know.
Okay.
We all know.
We all know. Due to recent events, I have decided to become more extreme in my religious beliefs. Me thinking about how great life would have been like if it really was 6 million and not 271,000.
It's not just Holocaust denial, it's Holocaust endorsement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lord, have mercy on me, an evil and R-word sinner. The look I give a Protestant who says it's not about religion, it's a relationship. Indeed, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who say they are Jews and are not, but lie indeed. I will make them come and worship before your feet and to know that I have loved you. Revelation 3:9. What Jesus said what Jesus says about the juice, by the way.
Jesus didn't have anything to do with the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation was written in a whole... Okay, if you think that Jesus had something to do with the book of Revelation, Jesus was really bad at grammar and spelling. Like, basically all scholars say the book of Revelation is written in very low-level, terrible Greek. So, like, if you think Jesus had something to do with that, sorry to say, but, like, your Lord and Savior might have gotten some of his literacy knocked out of his head up there on the cross.
But also, like, Jesus was a Jew?
Yeah.
So,
well,
what?
Okay, so...
go ahead. I know what you're going to say.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Here's the thing. So Bryce Crawford, Christian influencer, just interviewed the Grand Wizard of the KKK, and they have a cordial discussion about how the Jews are not real Jews. Actually, you know, like Aryan white people are the real Jews. Yeah. They're the real, like, people who have a covenant with God that go back to the historic land of Israel. And yeah, so they're like, no, they're a bunch of, like, fake Jews. Yeah. This is a KKK conspiracy.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And they believe that Jesus was a white man.
Oh, yeah.
I pray that all people will return to the service of God Almighty. Why are you dressed like that? Like what? Do not make peace with evil, destroy it.
Yeah. No, I mean, all of it is about saying that, like, you know, violence is good. Mm-hmm. I don't think that, like, when we dress darkly like this, I think we're playing on the symbols that Christians have attributed to people who are outside of their fold. Like, they're saying we live in darkness, and so we dress dark to, like, reclaim that. They're saying, no, darkness and violence and destruction is good. Yeah. We think that is good. We're not saying that. They're not inverting the symbols. They're embracing them.
Right. I mean, it gives the same energy as, like, going back to black metal, the band Mayhem. And, like, I never can remember all the different band members' names, even though I've listened to a ton of videos about Mayhem. But basically, they were a satanic black metal band, but they took the Satanism, like, literally, and believed that to be satanic meant that you had to be evil. Yeah. And so there was a lot of murder going on in that band and a lot of church burnings and that kind of thing. And this is giving that same energy where they're like, we are actually Gothic because we truly embrace the darkness and we truly want violence. We truly want to see, like, a macabre world. Yeah. Okay, so for this next one, I'm going to show you all of the pictures that are in this kind of collage here, even though not all of them are, like, relevant to what we're talking about today, because I want you to see the, like, juxtaposition or how this, like, kind of extremist rhetoric is buried under this, like, kind of innocuous type content. So this is from a account called Evangelist. So we have a picture of what looks to be a prayer card with, like, candelabras and a little tea candle in the background. A picture of candelabras and a crucifix, maybe. Then a picture that says, "Get in, loser, we are going crusading." Girl dinner. And it's a picture of, what are those called? Pizza rolls and a monster and a sword. So obviously the picture that I find concerning in this is the "get in, loser, or we are going crusading." And it's just so kind of disturbing to see these calls to violence and, like, calls to take up arms for some supposed holy war. Yeah. Intermixed with these kind of, like, girly aesthetic, like, goth girly vibes where you're not... I feel like it almost, like, desensitizes you to, like, what is being conveyed, like, the message that's being conveyed by this, because to me this says, we need to, like, go purge the earth of anyone that's not a Christian or forcibly convert people. But then it's, like, just put alongside pictures that are just, like, aesthetic. Yeah.
So I talked about in a video from almost a year ago now this concept called dark enchantment, which is it's a sociological term basically, but it's basically when people embrace a form of the enchantment of the mundane, you know, of, like, creating sacred and profane spaces, of finding meaning in things, imbuing things with meaning, but doing it through specifically a lens that has to do with violence having a primary role in that. So, you know, the enchantment of, like, if you walk into a place, let's say like you walk into a building and you feel a sense of like enchantment, you feel that this place is maybe sacred, you feel that this place has something to do with a larger story or narrative that you are entering into when you step into that place. Dark enchantment would be you step into that place and you either are filled with a sense that it must be destroyed, that someone else must be destroyed, or that there is some kind of evil present within that space. So, I mean, yeah, it really just has to do with what precisely is framed as being central within someone's like idea of how the world is enchanted. And I think that, you know, seeing these kind of aesthetic pictures that they feel very ethereal. They're like, I don't know.
That's actually a word that I used in my intro.
Oh, okay.
Like, to describe a lot of this, it's like ethereal goth.
Yeah, it's supposed to get you, like, draw you into the aesthetic, into
it's
the
almost
vibe.
like whimsical or magical.
Yeah, right, exactly. And then you see this, and it's like, just so that we're clear, the enchantment, the ethereality that you feel right now should be oriented toward destruction of evil by the use of gratuitous violence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's already getting you into a headspace where you feel like you maybe are in contact with some sort of spiritual realm, and then you're being sent this message from a supposed spiritual realm that you need to like take up arms against like the forces of evil.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, obviously this is targeted towards young women, because I don't think that young men would really be taken in by this kind of ethereal goth aesthetic, but it's definitely trying to kind of desensitize and also draw young women into a space where they feel like violence is justifiable.
Yeah. Also, I should say that sociologists have associated dark enchantment and the cultivation of this sense in groups of people with the political right. Wherever that may be, it's largely not really associated with the political left.
Yeah.
So take that for what you will.
How I sleep at night knowing I'm Catholic, trad, anti-feminist, unvaxxed, American, pro-life, and fearfully and wonderfully made in God's image.
What's up with them using the same doll?
Yeah, that is a thing. I don't know what type of doll this is. It is giving me like Bratz energy.
It looks like Coraline.
Yeah, so I think it's supposed to be kind of like a gothy Bratz doll, but it is, again, kind of repackaging these pretty extreme views as something that just like the girlies are just into. Yeah, you know. My guardian angel constantly picking me up after I fall into sin. Oh, to get married in a Gothic cathedral. Pope Leo, please call for another crusade. The girls are ready. Now, this one I find really interesting, because if there were to be another crusade, I don't think that men in this culture would like allow women to be part of that fight.
Yeah. No, I mean, in the context of a crusade, women get taken as slaves, or they are assaulted and killed. They are sexual objects of conquest. They are treasure, or they are basically slaves that create, meals and clothing for men. Like they're like meaningless cogs in a machine that are treated like trash. Yeah. They don't get to do the crusade. Like, what are you talking about?
Well, and I think that this kind of speaks to what a lot of the far right does, where they'll kind of like dangle a carrot in front of marginalized groups, whether that's women or queer folks or people of color. And they'll be like, oh, no, you can be part of this. You can be on our team. You can fight with us.
Yeah.
But when push comes to shove, when the fight actually comes, you know that they're going to be the first people that they like kick off of their boat.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like these women supposedly that are running these Groyper goth Instagram pages, they're under the false impression that they are part of this of this movement when they're only part of it in as much as they can be used as a tool.
Yeah.
But as soon as like they're no longer needed and they don't serve that function of bringing more people in, then they're going to be tossed to the side.
Right.
Like that's how it works. Me listening to Exorcist approved Gregorian chants. I do like some Gregorian chants. Me in my room wondering why God loves an evil and R-word sinner like me. Again, with the R-word.
It's like they're simultaneously like, we must embrace violence and that's good. We need to kill as many people as possible. But also we're really evil and that's bad.
Yeah.
There is some strange contradiction there. It doesn't seem particularly well thought out.
Well, and they're also saying we have the truth. We're on the right track. We're the intelligent ones, I guess.
Yeah.
But also we're really dumb.
I mean, it's okay. In a way, it is kind of what fascists do. Like, in order to establish something that's more like totalitarian, you have to have the idea that you are transcendently deserving of power.
Yeah.
And that can be correct. That can like mean that you're like correct. That can mean that you are like physically or mentally superior, culturally superior, whatever. But you also need some kind of mechanism to get people to like not think that everyone even within the culture that the fascists want to create into like the monoculture, not everyone even in that deserves power, because still it's super hierarchical and there's only going to be like a handful of people that actually control everything in the first place, right? So I mean, maybe the whole like, hey, we're superior because we're this type of Christian, but also you're a piece of shit, is a way that they can be like, I'm a part of the superior culture, and so those people in authority above me deserve everything. But I am a, horrible piece of shit who doesn't deserve anything, and so I'm going to stay in my place and not think that I, deserve human rights.
I think that could definitely be part of it, but I would push back a little bit on that just because I've, gone through all of the posts of these accounts, and a lot of them like compare themselves or are trying to achieve a similar level to like a similar level of sainthood, like Joan of Arc. Like they compare themselves to like Joan of Arc a lot. So I feel like in a way they are saying that I understand Catholicism or I understand what God's will is better than other people, but also at the same time I'm an evil, dumb sinner.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there is like none of it makes any fucking sense, to be honest. None of it does. And you can, I think, see like this is coming from Nick Fuentes's weirdo people, because I correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that they like to throw around the R word everywhere.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I mean that's been a hallmark of like edgy people for a long time.
Yeah.
But low self-esteem breeds dependence on strong men, basically, and on abusers. So it's a way to sow some low self-esteem. Probably works well for them.
Well, the interesting thing is in that sphere, the strong man is Nick Fuentes, and he's like, did you see that there's like this recent video where like there's this, I don't know who he is, some tall guy with like really curly hair, and he's like videoing with Nick Fuentes. And like Nick Fuentes looks like he's like 5 feet tall, and he has like his shirt tucked in. He's like standing there like a grandpa.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is the Groyper's leader? Like,
yeah, no, like, no, he's talked about how he does not have any friends and he's never like touched a woman, and that the fact that he hasn't, like the fact that other people like, have friends and like get girls, like that's actually just gay. And it's like, obviously this guy is like a pathetic loser who has never tried to have any kind of real like redeemable quality.
Yeah.
And that's why he has this ideology.
Yeah,
it's cope.
It's cope for sure. He's a total loser. And I think that goes back to something that you and I have been talking about a lot recently, which is like the idea of charisma. And like I think that people have this perception that what makes an effective or large cult is for the leader to be very charismatic. And they have this idea that like all cult leaders are charismatic people in themselves.
Yeah.
But really, it's not so much that the leader is actually charismatic, but the fact that he has a following at all kind of like contributes to the perception of charisma.
Right.
So he might be like someone that's really like Nick Fuentes, who's really, really weird and awkward, but the fact that he has a following at all gives this perception of him being like this very charismatic, charming person.
Right.
Crush modernism. And there's a priest holding a cross over what appears to be the devil. Reject modernity, accept Christ. A picture of like an artistic depiction of crusaders. This is the one I find so disturbing.
Okay.
So it says future hubby's room, and there's kind of this like antique-y looking room that has pictures, like artistic depictions of Jesus all over it, and then there's a man in what almost looks to be like what we're seeing ICE wear.
Yeah.
Like all in like a military getup.
Yeah.
And sitting in the room. But I think this, like, first of all, it goes kind of back to what we were talking about with the idea that like fascists are trying to get back to this like idealized past that never really existed. And so in these photos, that's like what that's communicating is that like we need to reject anything that's new or modern and go back to a time when things were more Christ-centered, as though things today aren't Christ-centered.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at like rates of religiosity throughout time, like within the Christian world, for videos on my channel, and the world today seems to be like the historically Christian world seems to be a little bit more religiously pious as an attendant of religious services than the medieval world. Like, interestingly enough.
Yeah.
I think that's something they'd probably want to go back to because the church had like more total, not completely total, but more total political power. But it didn't actually mean that people were like super pious and everything was Jesus-y and everything was picture perfect. I will say I do actually understand why people would say like something like reject modernity, because like material conditions are declining a lot for a lot of people, particularly for young people right now. And so I get why they'd be like, there's something better. I think that across the political spectrum, people are thinking some version of that.
Yeah.
It's just like you're saying, they want to go back to a past, like a mythical past that never existed. Whereas I think we would say we need to build a world that has not existed yet that's better than anything in the past.
No, I'm glad that you brought that up, because that is something that I wanted to mention in this video, is that like I do as well like understand where they're coming from when they're kind of reaching back towards this mythical past, because I think if there are actual women behind these accounts, and I think that there are because I've seen them posting pictures of themselves, I think that they have, because all of them are like recent converts to Catholicism or Orthodoxy.
It's always the converts.
It's always the converts. And I think that they've converted and are reaching back into the past for the same reason that during COVID, the amount of people that were kind of experimenting and researching into witchcraft, I think both of them are kind of doing that for similar reasons. Because like during COVID, there was this, unprecedented uncertainty, and people didn't know what this meant, and people were isolated, and people were looking for connection. Mm-hmm. And that led a lot of people into practicing witchcraft. Yeah. And I would say for that time, and particularly with witchcraft, there isn't too much of a harm that can come from that, because witchcraft doesn't have this like big tradition of patriarchy like Catholicism and Orthodoxy do. So like that didn't really have any like super negative consequences, I don't think, for people. But now we're in, again, unprecedented times. People feel very uncertain as to what's going to happen in the future. And so these women are probably looking back to the past for some form of stability and are being told like, well, the Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church, they've been around for thousands of years, and like they are very stable and they have the truth. And so these women are reaching back to try to cling to that because they don't have any other stability in their life. Right. So I can feel empathetic for them in that, but also at the same time, I'm like, you just should have done some witchcraft. Like, I think a lot of that would have been solved by you just like watching witch talk or something.
Or like being a form of Catholic, because there are actually many different forms of being Catholic. Like, go to a normal Catholic church and be a normal Catholic where people are just like concerned about trying to be good people and taking care of their neighbors and being concerned about the poor.
Yeah, that
like,
too.
You can get a lot of meaning out of that.
Too.
Or if you feel like you need a radical solution to things, maybe liberation theology. That's radical Catholicism.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not about killing anyone.
Well, that's the thing, is that the far right has been very effective at spreading their message. And so I think when people kind of have these questions and have this uncertainty and are looking for answers, the far right and their religiosity, I guess, is right there, easy to grab. That's like something that you can find online all over the place because they've kind of cornered the market when it comes to social media. But like finding out about liberation theology or finding out maybe even about witchcraft to a certain extent, that's not as ubiquitous online. And so I think they're just accepting the first thing that they see as the answer.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I'll say that we often say those things and those things are true, but the reason why, you know, leftist interpretations of theology or leftist political movements are not as big in the US in particular is not because like they haven't done a good job of marketing or there's been too much infighting or something like that. It's because the CIA and FBI have just murdered a bunch of people.
That's true.
Like
that's very true.
The CIA and FBI do not go after right-wing terrorist groups in the same way that they go after literal Catholic priests in Latin America that are just teaching liberation theology and saying, hey, did you know that being exploited through like excessive taxes on the poor is bad and goes against Christ's will? Boom, they kill you. So, yes, but.
Yeah, no, I totally see what you're saying. But I think it does, you know, I think it's a combo of both of those things where it's like, yeah, they're literally stamping out anything that's not their like right-wing form of Christianity. And also at the same time, they're pushing all of these things on social media and using the algorithms to their advantage so that the only information out there about like religion and spirituality is like their weirdo version of Christianity.
Yeah.
Because like I did not find out about liberation theology or know that that was even a thing until like maybe a few months ago. Like I'd never heard that term before.
And you were raised on the mission field trying to minister to like impoverished people.
Yeah.
That was your childhood.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and I think that like, and this is probably a short that I'm going to make on my channel, but I think for a lot of people that leave Christianity and either become agnostic or become atheists, they tend to think that the only two options are like evangelical Christianity or atheism.
Yeah.
And it's understandable why they think that, because what's largely represented in society and online is evangelical Christianity. But that's like not true at all. There's like a whole like spectrum in between of religion and belief and like possibilities there. And when, how do I want to say this? When I think when some atheists online kind of, they themselves present to their audience that there's only these two options, like you're either an evangelical Christian or you're an atheist, they're honestly buying into like Christian propaganda.
Right.
And like I want to, that's a whole separate conversation.
They've fallen prey to the restriction of the political and religious imagination of society rather than actually stepping outside of those restrictions.
Yes.
But they advertise themselves as having stepped outside the restrictions.
Exactly, yeah. You put that in much better words. That's what I was trying to
I've
get
been
at.
thinking about making a video about that for a long time. I probably will at some point.
You're not one of those Catholic freaks, right? My honest reaction.
Who's ever said that?
Nobody. That's just like a made-up argument. Me, when a man supports Israel, he's gay.
I mean, I'm not like super down with people supporting Israel, but that's because I don't think that imperialism and genocide are good. It doesn't have anything to do with Judaism.
Yeah, no, this is obviously like because they have a problem with Judaism and Jewish people, not necessarily the Israeli government.
Yeah.
What praying the sorrowful mysteries feels like. His books raised me and the girls.
Again, that will not be you and the girls if you do this. You and the girls will be chained to the stove.
Yeah, and like, again, it's like presenting, because these are people that are obviously dressed up to go into battle. They have armor and swords, and it's presenting violence in this like, oh, isn't that so cute? Like, it's giving the same vibe. Remember when we responded to like Daddy God Christianity, and Ali Yost went on this big spiel about how isn't God so cute that he sent a rainbow after the flood to remind us of his love.
Oh yeah, my dad's so cute for doing that.
Yeah, it's like you're saying your dad's so cute for genociding almost the entire planet, and he's like so cute because he just like put a little rainbow in the sky.
Yeah.
Like, what? This is giving the same energy.
Yeah.
Date idea, praying for the dead together. What is Weird Girl Winter? I'm weird all year. She is me, I am her. Isn't that Mary Shelley?
That's Mary Shelley.
Yeah. In Mary Shelley, like...
Mary Shelley was anti-aristocratic vegetarian.
Socialists?
Yes. I mean, like, socialist it wasn't exactly the same as it is today, but like, yeah, no, they were anti-aristocracy. They were vegetarians. Like, they were woke lib-cuck people.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And Percy Shelley.
Yeah.
Like, they would definitely be considered woke today.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is that, like, I think that these are, like, young women who, like, honestly aren't educated in the things that they're speaking on. And so, like, I think that they just found a picture, what looks to be like an old painting of someone, and they're like, ooh, that's kind of like spooky, gothy.
Like, I think they know that it's Mary Shelley, and I think that they know that she wrote Frankenstein, but like, if you actually read into her work, like, you realize why she's not a hero for people who want to go like murder the world in this for the sake of imperialism and theocracy.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't think that they even know that that's Mary Shelley.
Okay.
Like, I don't think that they even know that. I think that it's just a picture that they found that fits the aesthetic.
I literally have been meaning to get a framed picture of Mary Shelley to put up in our apartment. Like, that's how much in line she is with us, like, you know, woke leftist people. So, all right.
Okay, so the last one we're going to look at here is not exactly within the Groyper Goth, like, sphere on Instagram, but I did come across it while I was like looking into all of this. A lot of these accounts follow this specific account called Trad West. Yeah.
There's nothing more postmodern than being a self-acclaimed trad. Like, you know, traditionalism or whatever, like, it either never existed, what you're referring to, or what did exist is gone. And you are saying that you are that, and you're carrying on that legacy or whatever. Like, that is a self-ascribed role.
Yeah.
Like, it is, I won't go into, like, the complexities of it, but Justin Sledge from Esoterica says that being a self-ascribed, like, described trad is a totally, like, postmodernist invention and phenomenon there.
Well, and I think it's because it's a response to what they perceive to be, like, modern.
Yeah.
So, like, it's postmodern.
Right.
Maybe correct me if I'm
wrong.
wrong.
Yeah. No, that's putting it much better.
So this is an Instagram account, but I actually want to go to their merch store, because this account, they just post, I don't even know, like, news, I guess, like news about things that are going on within Catholicism. But then they have a merch store, and their merch store is very, very disturbing. All right, so they have some King David merch, Saint Ignatius, Michael, King Baldwin, which is, it's from a movie. I looked it up. Heaven something, I can't remember, but it's some movie. It says, I came not to bring peace, but a sword.
Finally, they actually quote at least something attributed to Jesus for once. Yeah. That's the first thing I've seen.
Now we have a shirt that has a Jerusalem cross on it. And I'm sure that you're, like, aware of the Jerusalem cross and what it represents. So it was the cross that was used by the Crusaders.
Mm-hmm.
But today, like in modern times, it's not really used other than by, I think, the flag of like the country Georgia has it on it. There's some sort of like, I think I wrote it down. Let me just look. I didn't write it down, but there's some like Catholic order that's like associated with the Church of the Holy Sepulchre that also uses that. But today it's mostly used and most commonly recognized as a cross that's used by white supremacists and far right groups.
Yeah.
Especially when it's in conjunction with the words Deus Vult, which means God wills it. That pretty much, if you see that cross with Deus Vult, that's a good indicator that this person's a white supremacist.
Yeah. I mean, the symbol, what that kind of is saying is like, you know, that cross symbolizes the Crusades, and then it says like God wills it. What that is saying directly is God wills that I exterminate other human beings.
Yeah.
That's what that says.
Yeah.
So like, just so we're clear.
I wrote down, when used in combination, the Jerusalem cross and Deus Vult are an invocation of the claim that Crusader violence and its atrocities, including the massacre of civilians, were legitimate. It is this bloody militant intent that comes first when seeking to understand its current usage as a symbol for those pledging their allegiance in contemporary politics, and this is why it has been appropriated by the so-called alt-right. So yeah, like the Jerusalem cross is pretty much only used by like alt-right groups now. But you probably know this, but Pete Hegseth, who is the Secretary of Defense, or I guess like Secretary of War now, because they like renamed it. He has a big Jerusalem cross tattooed on his chest.
Yeah.
And he has Deus Vult tattooed on his arm.
Yeah.
And when, you know, Trump was picking him out for Secretary of Defense, his tattoos caused a big stir because people were like, that's a pretty good indicator that this person is white supremacist. And also, I guess at the church that Pete Hegseth goes to is like also tied to like white supremacist groups.
Yeah, it's Douglas Wilson's church, yeah.
But I think, you know, because Trump's going to do what Trump's going to do, I think that was just all ignored.
Because he's a TV host. Of course.
Well, and Trump doesn't give a shit about white supremacy.
Yeah.
Like, as long as it gets... I don't think Trump has any motivations beyond just acquiring more power and wealth. So I don't think that he, like, is necessarily in white supremacy for, like, the cause of it, but more just to build his own power.
Yeah.
And so I think he was willing to brush those things to the side.
Okay, there's this one with a crusader with his foot on a dead body.
I didn't even notice that, actually. Oh my god. That's horrifying.
It trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. Yeah.
Who is wearing this?
They're obsessed with killing people. People who fantasize about killing other people.
And just like to think the idea of violence and that it's okay to kill people if it's in the name of religion and for your God has been like commercialized to the point where they're like selling it as merch.
Yeah.
And this Trad West Instagram page has like 500,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
Or followers. So potentially like there's 500,000 people out there walking around with these shirts on, and like that's totally fine.
I'm just saying the vast majority of the people who like aspire to this are total fucking losers who are pathetic. There are probably a handful of people who are actually training in militias, and I do not think the current U.S. government gives a shit about defending normal people from their violence. So figure out how to defend yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's something that we need to do on the left.
The wicked flee when no man pursueth, but the righteous are bold as a lion. This last one says, if I die, so be it. I'll die with the name of Christ on my lips.
Yeah.
It's like obviously like preparing people to like, or giving people the idea that there's some sort of battle that's about to happen.
And preparing them to be meat for the grinder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's giving
Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I totally forgot to mention this when Drew and I were filming, and I had planned to mention it, but then it completely I forgot. So the account Feminist to Feminine, the one that I've been talking about a lot, is actually followed by Angela Halili and Ariel Reitzma, who are the hosts of Girls Gone Bible. And if you guys have seen my other videos, you know that Girls Gone Bible is tied to the Trump administration, and they even opened up a Trump rally. Yeah, Angela Halili and Ariel Reitzma follow an account that is overtly, like, it's not even like a question. It is overtly anti-Semitic. And these women follow that account. I really wanted to make sure I said that. Okay, so clearly there is something weird going on here. You might wonder what makes this content distinctly Groyper coded rather than just broadly Christo-fascist. After all, none of these accounts really advertise themselves as Groyper. But there are a few clues. So first, the account Feminist to Feminine, which is the most prominent of the Groyper Goths, follows several overtly Groyper accounts on Instagram. The second, anti-Semitism underlies many of their posts, and a core aspect of Nick Fuentes and the Groyper movement is their animosity towards the Jewish people. Third, these accounts frequently share posts asserting that conservatism is as bad as liberalism. This reflects Nick Fuentes and the Groypers' belief that mainstream Republicans and conservatives don't go far enough in advancing white Christian nationalist ideals. And fourth, many of these posts are in a meme type format that Groypers are already accustomed to. But there is one major difference from typical Groyper content here. These accounts seem specifically designed to appeal to the girlies. And not just any girlies, but the emo goth or otherwise alternative girlies. While most goths see the goth subculture as inherently leftist, I think that these Groyper goths, in order to support their fascist ideals, are actually exploiting the very elements that make goth leftist. It's countercultural and anti-establishment ethos. See, neo-Nazis and fascists like Nick Fuentes are not really conservatives, as they fundamentally want to reshape society in their likeness through violent means. And they believe that the right hasn't gone far enough to achieve this goal. And this leads people like Nick Fuentes to claim that they're the ones who are actually anti-establishment and going against the grain. They claim that it's not actually the Democrats, socialists, anarchists, or communists. As a result, people who are politically disengaged or otherwise uninformed may come to see goth as compatible with the Groyper movement, since both claim this outsider status. But only one of these outsider statuses is actually legitimate. Goths have an outsider status because they historically have been shoved to the margins of society, versus Groypers and fascists have taken over entire countries. So yeah, one of these outsider statuses is warranted while the other one isn't. What's so disturbing is that these accounts are basically selling young women on the idea that fascism and Nazism is nothing more than ethereal goth aesthetics, and that it mostly entails running around a rose garden at night in your nearly see-through ruffly gown. I mean, some of these accounts have almost a Tumblr or Pinterest vibe. Some of their posts even resemble vision boards, showcasing images of candelabras, lace dresses, daggers, and of course, a depiction of Jesus paired with Matthew 10:34, which says, "I have not come to bring peace, but a sword." And this is a verse that is often quoted by fascists to justify their violence. You know how parents sometimes blend up carrots and spinach and then mix them into dishes like spaghetti or mac and cheese to try to get their young kids to actually eat their vegetables? That's how I see Groyper goths. They're basically blending up Nazism and sneaking it into goth aesthetics to hopefully get young women to embrace their agenda. And I think that the rise of Groyper goths signals a new effort by the Groyper movement to recruit young women. Just as we saw with the Trump administration's partnership with Girls Gone Bible, the Groypers are looking to tap into a new demographic. This movement has historically been male-dominated, but to achieve true mainstream influence, they'll need women to join as well. And the fact that so far their tactics are kind of working, I mean, as I said, Feminist to Feminine does have over 100,000 followers. That is if those 100,000 followers weren't actually bought, which could be the case too. But regardless, the fact that it is this popular or gives this air of popularity is really scary. And I'm not sure how to really end this video other than to say that we all need to be on watch for the extremism seeping in through seemingly innocuous ways, seeping in to the goth subculture that a lot of us hold dear. All right, guys, real quickly before I do my sign off, don't forget to download June's Journey for free by clicking the link below in the description or by scanning the QR code that's on screen right now. Unfortunately, it's going to be another video where I can't go and grab Piggy for the sign off because my back is still messed up really badly. I have another doctor's appointment this week and I'm hoping to get some answers because it hasn't gotten any better and it's really limited my ability to do like most things that I do. So it kind of sucks. But yeah, there's no way that I could go and pick up Piggy, unfortunately. But thank you guys so much for watching, and a huge thank you to my patrons who help make these videos possible. If you like this video, please be sure to subscribe and ring the bell. If you'd like to follow me on social media, my Instagram is Taylor_the_Antibot. And if you'd like to support this channel financially, a link to my Patreon will be down in the description, and I'll see you all in the next one.